don't know how to do one of those really good whistles. I'm Chris Callum, I'm the Director of Women in Their Work. Thank you so much for coming. We are so pleased to have Ann Wood here from Galveston, and she's going to talk with us a bit about her work. But I wanted to draw your attention. We publish catalogs for each artist that we present, and it's going to be ready before this show comes down. And the writer who's writing about it is Alex Irvine, and she's here. And also we provide a curatorial assistant to the artists that we show to develop their work, to bounce questions and thoughts and ideas with. And Clint Willauer is Ann's curatorial assistant. He is going to speak to you and introduce Ann. So join me in welcoming Clint Willauer.
Ann Wood is a California girl, if you couldn't tell. She grew up in California, went to college in California, then came to Texas smartly and got her master's from the University of Texas in San Antonio. And then 4 years ago?
I think 5 years ago. How long have we been together?
5 years ago.
A year before the hurricane.
Right before Hurricane Ike. She and her husband Jeff and her 2 kids moved to Galveston. And immediately I started seeing her work. She had a show at Lawndale Art Center in the mezzanine gallery, which led me to say I'd like to talk about doing something in Galveston. And she had a couple of pieces in galleries, a gallery in Houston that I frequent often, on the Tisch Gallery. And so we agreed to do a one-person exhibition in my space, which is about the size of this, but was divided into 2 sections and got to be a wonderful installation. And I knew about this program at Women in Their Work and suggested that she apply here for an exhibition, which she did, and the result is this. So we have this ongoing friendship and relationship. I buy her presents to match her outfit.
Perfect. I know.
And she is a really, really hard worker. And you have to understand, in Galveston, galleries, studio spaces are inexpensive and large, but they're usually unair conditioned, as is hers. And she was making all of this over the summer when we were having 95-degree days. So Alex would come with me. We'd come together and do our curatorial advice and our looking to write essays, looks. And we'd go at 10:30 in the morning where it was maybe only 95. We did not go at 3 in the afternoon. It was 120. So all this was made under those circumstances. And it's just really wonderful to see it all come through and to know that the 2 of us said, don't do that and do that. And she did most of it and didn't do some of it. So, Ann Wood.
Thank you. Well, if you can't hear me, let me know. I'll try to project, and if you have questions, please ask. But there are people that I definitely want to thank. Alex and Clint, thank you. Like they said, how sweaty and hot it was up there. Appreciate it so much. And my husband for, dealing with me being like absentee the entire summer and stuff. Just thank you. And my in-laws, I see so many familiar faces from Galveston and stuff. That means so much to me. Thank you. Thank you. So, I guess the things that I'm asked are like, what's your inspiration? And then a lot of questions about the materials. So I'll kind of address those 2 things, and then if there's questions, I'll be happy to field them. But I mean, it's so hard when people ask you like, what does it mean or what are the inspirations? Because there's just so many things. But if I were to kind of go to like the root of it, I guess I'm really drawn like in museums and stuff to those really old paintings of like Dutch still lifes, like dead animals that are displayed really beautifully, and they're just really gorgeous. Now, that's kind of a recent thing. I used to kind of run through that section, but all of a sudden I'm like really drawn there. So I enjoy taking those paintings, which to me, in my opinion, seem very masculine. They're dark and they're usually painted by men and stuff. And I like to try to kind of transform that into my girly ideas, because I'm pretty girly and feminine. So, to me, like sewing and stuff is just really dear to my heart. I've had like embroidery thread or some kind of yarn in my hand since I was like 6 years old, so it just is really natural. Although my embroidery is sloppy on purpose, I mean, I'm just kind of like, you know, I just get in there and do it. So I'm really inspired by those really large paintings. And there's also ones that I love that have a lot of animals in them being kind of taken down in the hunt or something. So I like that, the like prettiness, I guess traditionally prettiness, is that a word? The prettiness of it kind of contrasted with the subject matter. And I think that that really goes with the 2D work, and it goes with the 3D work too. I really like those monumental sculptures that you see in town squares of like men on horses and they're all bronze and stuff. There's something really cool about those. So I like to take those and kind of turn them into more feminine looking kind of thing. And I think of a cake, I think of this as kind of like a big, huge, almost a wedding cake or a super cake. I just made that up, super cake. There's my super cake. So it's kind of layered in that respect. The materials that I use are not real traditional for the paintings, like the embroidery thread, the white, the gold, the white and the gold, and some of the green and stuff. It's poured plastic. So I take plastic and mix it 1-to-1 ratio and pour it onto the painting. I should step back. I start off with a really kind of drawing. I do a lot of drawings like on tracing paper and get them just right. They're about this big. And then I project them onto like wallpaper or scrapbook paper, like all taped together, something like that. Then I put that on canvas. Then I embroider for a long time until I get a really good edge. And then I can start pouring the plastic. The plastic cures in about 1 minute, in the summer about 20 seconds. So you mix it, you have to be really prepared, and you pour it. And you just hope like and pray that you get the right look. And so I do a lot of that. The 3D stuff is taxidermy mannequins, which is really strange to me. It's not taxidermy stuff, it's like the core that people who do taxidermy like put inside of, I guess, their pet horse or something, or what they've shot that day, or coyotes. I mean, there's weird things that you can taxidermy that I really never knew. And so in my sick world, in my studio, I guess I'm kind of doing like total girl taxidermy, you know, like covering it, instead of putting a skin on it, I'm kind of frosting it with this foam. Again, it's a 1-to-1 part. I've always been obsessed with flowers. Like the first thing I ever did in BFA program was like a really bad painting of flowers, you know. So it's always been something that's been dear to my heart. What am I missing? I feel like there's more to talk about, but
Why don't you talk about where the title for the show came from?
okay, yeah. I do a lot of reading, and it's not good reading. I'm not saying that I'm like a reading snob, but the actual title from this show, and this I guess is good reading, but came from I think it's Romeo and Juliet. Like I said, I'm not real up on it, but it was these violent delights have violent ends, and something in their triumph die like fire and powder, which as they kiss consume. So I was thinking of like the attraction repulsion, the thin line between I guess love and hate. So in a lot of these paintings, like for example that one, I feel like there's this white iconic stag being taken down by these wild dogs, which I kind of feel like I think of them as lovers. Like in most of these there's pairs, and I always have a girl and a boy in mind. Even over here in this one that's a still life with lovebirds is the birds at the bottom, which are kind of the paired grouping, that's what I mean. So there's always like a kind of a pair in this new chunk of work. I was more obsessed with death, I guess. I was more obsessed with death in the last kind of chunk I did, and there's a lot more kind of displayed animals, but so that's where the title came from, and kind of what took me down the road. Questions? Yes?
When you install this, is the bottom piece all one piece, and does it easily crack when you?
It didn't crack when I did it. Honestly, I used a new medium here. I pour a lot of stuff on the floor, and usually I use rubber. And it's really cool, but as soon as you touch it, it's ruined. So, like, usually the first day someone walks on it or someone touches it, and there's little fingerprints. So I got all cool, and I was like, I'm going to do plastic. That's going to be great. It's going to work. And it did, but I poured it, and I thought, this is great. And then over the next 15 minutes, it kept getting bigger. and bigger, and that was fine, except for I hadn't put down a big enough tarp. So me and Anya, is she here? Is that Anya? Yeah, we were like pushing it on, and I was like crying, not really, but you know, I was like going on the floor, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be like, you know, blackballed. So I don't know how if this is gonna break. I mean, you could break it, but when I was dragging it around, placing it, it was solid enough to kind of move. I didn't think about how I would get it, you know, back, because it will in the heat, it will kind of like, you know, melt a little bit. But I do a lot of things on site, so I knew that I would come and do some stuff on the floor, definitely.
Have you ever been injured by any of your mediums?
No, you know, I mean, knock on wood, no. I've been pretty lucky. I was a little concerned about how I was going to get that horse to stand up, but I made my husband come and we stood it up and tied it to this pole that's probably holding up the entire building. I don't know, it's probably a bad idea, but it worked, and then I did concrete around it, and it, I mean, knock on wood, I've made, I guess this is only the second stacked one I've made like this, but I've made a few of these kind of things, and so far again, I'm going to knock on wood, but so far I've been really lucky about the balance, just kind of working out magically. I don't know, you know.
You did trig.
What?
You said trigonometry.
No, I did that to see if it would fit in the door. And I was really mad that I didn't pay more attention because it was really hard to figure out if the stuff was going to fit in the door. Like, that was a whole couple days of sweating. But
I picture this in the back of a pickup truck, and I picture people driving by.
I wanted to take it in a horse trailer, but I figured like all the flowers would be like trailing behind me. But no, I had to get like a 22-foot truck, because like a striver truck, because the height to clear, you know. I've gotten older, wiser and older. I've gotten wiser in my old age, and I did start to make them come apart, and I'm having more foresight with that. But I still have a problem. I start making stuff, and then about 90% through, I think, oh, expletive, how am I going to hang this, or how am I going to like transport? I don't think about the door or the elevator, you know.
Are these mountains heavy, especially the main horse?
Yes, it is heavy, and you can ask some of the people here who helped. I think my husband might have thrown out his bag. And we recruited some random person on the street, the poor guy, to help. But we got it off. They're heavy. I mean, they're not like, you don't need a crane or anything, but it's pretty close.
But I see this as playground equipment, and I think you could set up a playground.
Oh, yeah.
It's totally, like the kids are wanting to play.
Oh, of course. And you know, that's how I know if I personally like something, is if I just want to touch it when no one's looking. Or I've said this to some people, but like bite it. Like that's a really great thing. Yeah. If I get my bite instinct going, then something's good.
Have you done other real large-scale pieces like this?
This is the largest one I've ever done, but I've made,
The one in Galveston.
yeah, that's, you know, tall. It's about that tall. It's a deer, a big sheep, and then a coyote. So,
Standing on each other.
yeah, stacked up. Kind of like in a nursery rhyme, you know, how they like to stack like the animals, that kind of, I like that.
What was the relationship of these particular animals to each other? Because they're not really predators.
No, I know, and I don't know if I know the answer. It was more like, I started doing this painting that isn't in the show of horses fighting. And so it kind of made me want to do horses, and then it just wasn't enough. So then I thought, well, I love deer, and I've been doing deer, and it just needs a deer on its back. And then I was like, no. Then I was like, no, but where are the dogs that are ripping it to shreds? You know, so then that came. So it doesn't really make sense, but I guess in a way there's a little bit of that, the cow jumped over the moon kind of thing, even though there's no cows in there. But that whole like nursery rhyme kind of thing of stacked animals. And why does it make sense when it's the cow, the sheep, the pig, the chicken? You know, I guess that makes more sense. But well, I want to do like exotic animals too, like elephants and stuff. But I can't really get past the circus reference yet. So, you know, maybe someday, and when I am really rich.
Have you ever
So tomorrow.
thought of doing a piece with insects?
Oh, I love insects. I've done a lot of things with flies. There's flies in here, but I definitely do a lot of things with flies, butterflies. I kind of
Butterfly up there.
like maggots, but I can't figure out how to make that work because you can't really embroider a really good maggot. So it's something that maybe will come to me at someday. Maybe I need to blow them up or something. But I know. But that, insects and the way that they break things down, I think that, you know, the idea of decay and kind of is important.
How long does it take you to hand sew the animals?
Oh, great question, Azo. It takes me forever. This is my good friend Azo here, and she has asked how long it takes. And I started all of this work plus 3 other things that are in my studio that are like about half done about a year and a half ago. And I work pretty much every day from about 8:30 to about 4:30. So, and I have a big blister. I have a permaclaw hand. So I don't know how to answer that, but it takes a long time. Yeah.
What's your favorite animal?
In the whole wide world?
Yeah.
I really like giraffes, which there aren't any here. And I guess I like deer, but I didn't know that. That's a hard question. That's like, what's your favorite color? Anything else? Or you good? Yeah.
Do you think this taxidermy issue has to do with being in Texas and hunting?
Well, I don't know, because my only experience with hunting was in California. My dad grew up on a ranch, like the biggest ranch in Northern California, like hardcore rancher guy, like shearing sheep, cutting off their goods and all that kind of stuff, you know. So I've seen that when I was little, and I would ride horses and stuff, but I'm by no means a country girl, you know. So it's kind of, you know, well, I just mean that, you know, that was his life, and I had my life, but we would go there in the summers, so I would witness all that and kind of had that feeling. And I've been hunting, and I didn't like it. But it's not necessarily like an animal rights thing, although, I mean, you know,
I'm sorry, what is that?
it's not. I mean, I'm not, it's not something that enters into my mind.
No, I just thought, you know, this whole
Well, I'm sure that that has something to do with it, because I didn't deal with this for a really long time. You know, I was doing other stuff, so it's kind of come back in the last 5 years, so maybe it has kind of had a resurgence in that sense, but
We do get a lot of hunting.
that's because, yeah, I get a lot of, like, invitations to go to taxidermy camp and stuff, which I'm so tempted to do. I know.
probably be a good learning.
I know. I already had a great experience, and this is a really stupid story, but with, you know, they don't come with their ears, so you have to buy the ears separately. And for some reason, one of the horses didn't come with ears. Oh gosh, I'm going to point out the flaw, and you guys are going to see it now. But it didn't come with ears. And so I emailed them this really nice email, you know, customer service. I was like, do you have ear liners for a horse? And, you know, if not, do you have anything, suggestions? And I was so nice. And the exact email I got back was no. I was like, no. And so I didn't even query and say, are you sure? And I actually, don't look, but I made those ears out of duct tape. My daughter would be so proud because I got her duct tape and I like it. But I think, yeah, now like I said, I'm pointing out the flaw. You guys can probably see that when you look close. But anyway, any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.